Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sirree. What else you got for me? Oh my goodness, just when I thought it couldn't get better. Now what's next? Let's move on to the... I forgot you existed.
Listen, I don't think this is a hot take. Nintendo has been, well, second best. Middle of the line. Average. At least recently. Back in the early days, even up until the late 2000s, Nintendo was the king of video games. Now, it's the king of mid. The problem with Nintendo is that the games, consoles, and characters were never able to grow and adapt to the changing world. In the 80s and 90s with the NES, SNES, and N64, nobody could touch Nintendo. The Game Boy revolutionized handheld gaming. Of course, the original Game Boy was pretty rough. What did it have, like 50 batteries needed? But with the Game Boy Color and Advance, they were able to get on the right track. But Nintendo in the early days was so influential and really laid the ground for what video games have become today. And of course, it wasn't just the consoles. The franchises and characters have existed for decades and are still the most popular icons in gaming. Mario, Pokemon, Samus, Kirby. It's 2024 and they're still just as popular as ever. And that'll probably always be the case. But let's be real, Nintendo was very much targeted towards kids. And there's nothing wrong with that, it's always been the case. And it's built so many memories for people's childhoods and continues to do so. But we're adults now. See, back in the day, when I was a kid or teenager, the discussion was always PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo, which is the best. And you could actually make a case for why Nintendo might have been the better option, especially during the Wii era, which was absolutely peak Nintendo.
I mean, they absolutely cooked with the Wii. If you weren't a Nintendo guy before, you were now. 2006, November, whatever the day was, the Wii comes out, the world changes forever. You're telling me you got franchises here like Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, all while I can play the game with a GameCube controller and I can play GameCube games. Of course, you can't navigate the menu with the GameCube controller or really anything that isn't the Wii remote, which unfortunately takes batteries and, well, I'm all out.
The Wii was a huge console with incredible games, and it might not have been as powerful as the PS3 or Xbox One, but it still held its own against them. It was still able to play some of the top-of-the-line games at the time. Sure, it had less features and lower graphics, but still, games like Call of Duty, sports games, and fighting games it could handle. And even if some games weren't available on the Wii, it was an older console, and we understood that. Plus, it has franchise games like Mario Bros. And Smash Bros., plus exclusives like Wii Sports. That reminds me, Mii's for their time were so fun. Honestly, what the Wii lacked in power, it made up for in features and franchises, like the menu UI.
To this day, this is my favorite home menu of any console ever made. I mean, it just looks so clean, it's not dated at all, it's beautiful. I mean, look what you got here. And this is what really separated the Wii from the other consoles at the time, because, I mean, sure, like you got the Mii's and stuff, but just, even if you didn't have any other games or programs, they still, I mean, dude, you got the forecast channel, the news channel, dude, the photo channel. I don't know what the check me out channel is. I don't think I ever used that. But everything is just so incredible. Like, there's even a little video that plays for every Wii game that you put in there. It's amazing.
But that was then and this is now. When you even think about comparing the capabilities of the Switch to a PS5 or Xbox Series S, I mean, it's night and day. The Switch has the power of the PS3, maybe a bit more in certain cases, but overall it just doesn't live up to the standards of modern console gaming. But this was the case with the Wii U as well. The Wii U was almost no different to the Wii, which was a big problem considering at the time the PS4 and Xbox One were its competitors. And yeah, the Wii U sucked and no one bought it. Plus, some franchise games just didn't hit the same as the Wii, like Smash Bros. And Mario Kart 8, they just weren't as good. The Wii U always seemed like an extension of the Wii, but also a prequel to the Switch. So yes, it was a flop, but at least Nintendo had other things going for them, like the 3DS.
This is the 3DS I have, and boy did I make some good videos with this. In fact, I made my first ever live with this 3DS.
You can use a Wii remote on your 3DS. Have you ever thought the 3DS charger looked familiar? It's the same connector as the Wii sensor bar.
It was glorious, and it was the beginning of my channel. What's in here? Smash Brothers 3DS, incredible game. I mean, really, you know, the concept of a handheld Smash Brothers game, just wild for the time. If this still works, I'm gonna poop my pants. This has been closed for probably a year. I am absolutely... Full battery? What?
But then there was nothing. Silence. Aside from new games, of course. Then in 2017, the Switch releases. Yes, at the time it was fascinating. A full console you could take on the go, it was like what the Wii U should have been, and everyone thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was in high school at the time, and people would always bring their Switches into the cafeteria and play 4-player games with the Joy-Cons. If you had a Switch, you were the shit. And it was like that for a while, especially after Smash Bros. Ultimate released. The Switch wasn't winning the console wars by any means, but it was still fun to play, and I think that sums up what Nintendo has been, console-wise, ever since the Wii. Innovation can only get you so far, and now with the PS5 and Xbox Series S, we've all kind of realized that Nintendo consoles just can't compete. Like I said, the Switch basically has PS3 power, and it's 2024. However, there hasn't been a new console from Nintendo in a really long time. In fact, this has been the longest period Nintendo's gone without releasing a major console or device since ever. It's been 7 years so far. It looks like it's going to be at least another year. Meanwhile, the time between all the previous consoles and devices were only a few years. So maybe they're planning something huge for the next one because Mario, Pokemon, Zelda, and all the other franchises deserve to be on consoles that can hold up.
I'm not saying the next Legend of Zelda game has to be, you know, the most realistic graphics you've ever seen, like PS5 God of War type of stuff. But what I am saying is older video games, a lot of the N64 stuff, a lot of the 80s stuff too, everything looked similar because, you know, everybody was limited by the technology that we had back then. Nintendo is just very cartoony, and I don't know if it's necessarily by choice at this point. The Switch can't handle ultra realistic looking graphics, and it doesn't have to, but does everything have to be a cartoon? Like, I wouldn't mind if the next Legend of Zelda game, not necessarily Link or like the characters, but the scenery, the background, if that looked a little bit more realistic, you know, kind of up to par with what we have today. Other games too, you know, like Fire Emblem and Pokemon. I don't know, you let me know.
I feel like there was a point in the late 90s and early 2000s where Nintendo was just way ahead in the gaming company war. They were knocking it out of the park. I mean, everyone had a DS, whether it was the original, the Lite, the DSi. The Nintendo 64 capitalized on 3D gaming and created some of the best classics ever, not including GoldenEye. That game stinks. The GameCube had so many franchise games. Most are my favorite of the entire series, even today, like Superstar Baseball, Strikers, Smash Bros, plus just some of the most kick-ass games ever, like Shadow the Hedgehog. And then there's the Wii. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen before and dominated console gaming, but Nintendo never allowed itself to grow. The Wii was the peak of the mountain, and unfortunately, it's all gone downhill from there. Let's hope Nintendo can bounce back, because with the way the gaming atmosphere is today, if the Switch 2 or whatever it'll be doesn't at least have PS4 capabilities, I ain't buying it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you agree with my opinion. That's all from me. Good night.